The salvaged ship Wanderer's Hope drifted through the debris field of what used to be the Kepler station. Captain Marcus Chun watched the scanner readings with growing unease. 3 days ago, this had been a thriving research outpost with over 2,000 inhabitants. Now it was just twisted metal and frozen atmosphere crystals scattered across 1,000,000 cubic kilometers of space. "Captain, I'm picking up a faint biosignature," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station. "It's weak, but definitely organic. Bearing 27 Mark IV. Marcus leaned forward in his command chair. After 48 hours of searching through the wreckage, they'd found nothing but bodies and broken dreams. Life support, minimal. Whatever it is, it won't last much longer. Take us in slow and steady. Deploy the recovery pod." As they approached the source of the signal, Marcus could see it was a section of what appeared to be a research laboratory. The hull was cracked, but somehow maintaining pressure. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows across the interior. The recovery operation took 20 minutes. When the airlock finally cycled open, Marcus was the first to step into the damaged lab section. The artificial gravity was functioning, but barely. He moved carefully through the debris-strewn corridors, following the biosignature readings on his handheld scanner. He found her in what looked like a biological containment cell. At first glance, Marcus thought she might be human, but as he approached, he realized how wrong he was. She was perhaps 5 feet tall, with delicate features that seemed almost elfin. Her skin had a subtle copper tone that seemed to shimmer in the emergency lighting. But it was the fox-like ears protruding from her auburn hair and the bushy tail visible beneath her torn research gown that marked her as distinctly non-human. She was conscious, huddled in the corner of the cell, watching him with large amber eyes that held a mixture of fear and exhaustion. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, but the universal translator in his helmet rendered her words clearly. "Please don't look at me. I know how unsightly I must appear to your kind." Marcus stopped in his tracks. Unsightly? She was probably the most beautiful being he'd ever encountered. Her features were refined, almost artistic in their perfection. Even injured and afraid, there was something about her that made his heart skip a beat. "What's your name?" he asked gently, keeping his distance to avoid frightening her further. "Kira. I was a research subject here. The scientists, they were studying my people. We're called the Vulperians." She pulled her knees closer to her chest, trying to make herself smaller. "They said we were useful because of our enhanced senses and adaptive biology, but they also said we were primitive, ugly compared to the more advanced species." Marcus felt a surge of anger at whoever had told her such lies. The scientists here were idiots. "You're not ugly, Kira. You're beautiful." She looked up at him with surprise. You really think so? But I'm not sleek like the Arcturians or graceful like the Ethereals. I'm just me. Just you is perfect," Marcus said, and meant every word. He activated his comm unit. "Sarah, prepare the medical bay. We're bringing aboard a survivor." As he helped Kira to her feet, she stumbled slightly. Without thinking, Marcus caught her, and for a moment they stood close together. Her scent was subtle but intoxicating, like wildflowers and warm earth. When she looked up at him, there was something in her amber eyes that hadn't been there before. "Hope, maybe. Why are you helping me?" she asked. "Your ship could leave me here. I'm just a failed experiment from a destroyed station." "Because every life has value," Marcus replied. "And because leaving someone like you behind would be the biggest mistake of my life." During the journey back to the main ship, Kira told him about her people. The Vulperians had been spacefaring for less than 2 centuries, making them newcomers to the galactic community. They were often treated as second-class citizens, valued only for their heightened senses and ability to adapt to different environments. Many worked as scouts or miners in dangerous regions of space. The research station was supposed to be studying ways to enhance other species with Vulperian traits, she explained as Marcus guided her through the ship's corridors. "But I think they were more interested in finding ways to make us more acceptable to the other races." The medical bay was state-of-the-art, designed to treat a wide variety of alien physiologies. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the ship's chief medical officer, ran a full scan on Kira while Marcus waited anxiously nearby. She's malnourished and exhausted, but otherwise healthy, Dr. Rodriguez reported. Her biological readings are fascinating. Enhanced neural pathways, improved sensory organs, faster reflexes than most humanoids. Whoever called her people primitive was clearly ignorant. Kira had fallen asleep on the medical bed, curled up in a position that reminded Marcus of how cats sleep. Her fox ears twitched occasionally, probably picking up sounds too faint for human hearing. Even in sleep, she maintained that subtle defensive posture, as if she expected to need to flee at any moment. She's been through hell, Dr. Rodriguez observed quietly. The psychological scans show signs of prolonged stress and trauma. Someone's been treating her badly for a long time. Marcus clenched his fists. Not anymore. She's under our protection now. When Kira woke up several hours later, she found Marcus sitting in a chair beside the medical bed, reading a datapad. He looked up when her eyes opened and smiled. Feeling better? She nodded, then sat up slowly. I had dreams about fields of flowers and open skies. It's been so long since I've had pleasant dreams. Where would you like to go? Marcus asked. Do you have family? Friends? Kira's expression grew sad. My family was killed in a mining accident 3 years ago. The research station recruited me because I had no one to miss me. As for friends, she shrugged. The other research subjects kept to themselves. It was safer that way. Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. Would you like to stay with us? We're a salvage and rescue ship. We could use someone with your enhanced senses. And, honestly, I'd like to get to know you better. Kira's amber eyes widened. You want me to stay? But I don't know anything about salvage operations. We can teach you. The important thing is whether you want to be here. For the first time since he'd found her, Kira smiled. It was a radiant expression that transformed her entire face. Yes, I would like that very much. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Kira, about the way she'd been treated, about the strength she'd shown despite everything. He'd served in the Galactic Fleet for 15 years and had encountered dozens of alien species, but none had affected him the way she did. Around midnight, he decided to check on her. Dr. Rodriguez had given her quarters near the medical bay, just in case. When he arrived, he found her door slightly open and could hear soft sobbing from within. He knocked gently. Kira, is everything okay? The sobbing stopped. After a moment, she opened the door. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked embarrassed. I am sorry. I didn't mean to disturb anyone. You're not disturbing anyone. What's wrong? She hesitated, then stepped back to let him enter her quarters. They were standard crew accommodations, comfortable but utilitarian. I keep thinking this is all a dream, that I'll wake up back in that cell, or worse. Nobody has ever been kind to me the way you have today. I don't understand why. Marcus sat down on the small couch, and, after a moment, Kira joined him. Maybe it's because I see what you really are, instead of what other people have told you that you are. And what do you think I am? Marcus looked at her carefully. Even with tear-stained cheeks, and wearing a plain ship's jumpsuit, she was stunning. But it was more than physical beauty. There was an inner strength, a resilience that shone through despite everything she'd endured. I think you're brave, intelligent, and beautiful. I think you've survived things that would have broken lesser beings. And I think anyone who told you otherwise was blind. Kira stared at him for a long moment, her fox ears twitching slightly. Then, to his surprise, she leaned closer and gently touched his hand with hers. Her fingers were warm and slightly smaller than human proportions, with subtle claw-like nails that were clearly designed for more than decoration. Thank you, she whispered. For the first time in years, I don't feel alone. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. You're not alone anymore, Kira. I promise you that. As he prepared to leave and let her get some rest, Kira called out to him. Marcus? Tomorrow, when we start working together, will you still see me the same way? He turned back to her, struck by the vulnerability in her voice. I'll see you exactly the same way I see you now, as someone extraordinary who deserves to be treated with respect and kindness. That night, for the first time in 3 years, Kira slept without nightmares. 3 weeks had passed since Kira joined the crew of the Wanderer's Hope, and Marcus was amazed at how quickly she'd adapted to ship life. Her enhanced senses made her invaluable during salvage operations. She could detect structural weaknesses in damaged hulls that their scanners missed, hear the telltale sounds of failing life support systems through layers of metal, and even smell the chemical signatures of different atmospheric leaks. But it wasn't just her abilities that impressed the crew. Despite her initial shyness, Kira had a natural warmth that drew people to her. She spent her off-duty hours learning about human culture, asking endless questions about Earth, about literature, about music. Her curiosity was infectious, and Marcus found himself seeing familiar things through her fresh perspective. The morning alarm chimed softly as Marcus made his way to the bridge. They were approaching the Broken Crown, a massive derelict ship that had been drifting in interstellar space for over 2 centuries. The vessel was a hegemony dreadnought from the Old War, nearly 5 kilometers long and theoretically packed with valuable technology. Morning, Captain. Lieutenant Kim greeted him as he settled into his command chair. We'll reach the target in 30 minutes. All systems are green. Where's our newest crew member? Sensor Bay 2. She's been there since 0500, calibrating the deep scan arrays with Chief Petty Officer Williams. Marcus smiled. Kira threw herself into every task with enthusiasm that was both endearing and impressive. She'd already suggested 3 improvements to their sensor protocols, and her modifications had increased their scanning efficiency by 30%. When they reached the derelict, Marcus called for all senior staff to meet in the main conference room. Kira arrived last, carrying a data pad filled with sensor readings. She'd taken to wearing her auburn hair in a practical ponytail that kept it out of her way while working, though her fox ears were always visible. Some of the crew had been curious about her appearance at first, but her competence and friendly nature had quickly won them over. Initial scans show the ship is structurally sound, reported Chief Engineer David Park. Power systems are dead, but the hull integrity is at 92%. Remarkable for a ship this old. Dr. Rodriguez added, atmosphere is present but not breathable. High concentrations of methane and sulfur compounds. We'll need full environmental suits. Marcus turned to Kira. What do your enhanced senses tell us that the scanners might miss? Kira consulted her data pad, her amber eyes serious. There are organic readings throughout the ship. Not life signs exactly, but something biological. The patterns are strange, almost like the ship is growing something. Growing what? Asked Lieutenant Kim. I'm not sure. The readings are unlike anything in our databases. I'd recommend extreme caution during the boarding operation. Marcus nodded. Kira's intuitions had already saved them from 2 potentially dangerous situations during previous salvage runs. We'll go in with full teams. Kira, I want you on my squad. Your senses might be the edge we need if there's something unexpected aboard that ship. An hour later, Marcus led a team of 6 through the main airlock of the derelict dreadnought. The ship's interior was a maze of corridors designed for beings much larger than humans. Everything was built on a massive scale, from the doorways that stretched 3 meters high to the command consoles that required ladders to reach. The hegemony species were giants, explained Dr. Rodriguez through the comm system as they made their way deeper into the ship. Average height was around 2.5 meters, with proportional strength. They were one of the most physically imposing species in the galaxy before their civilization collapsed. Kira moved beside Marcus, her enhanced hearing and smell providing a constant stream of information. The biological readings are getting stronger, she reported quietly. And there's something else. I can hear movement, very faint. Something large is alive in here. They've been exploring for 2 hours when they found the first pod. It was roughly egg-shaped, about the size of a hover car, and covered in a translucent membrane that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Through the membrane, they could see something moving inside. My God, whispered Chief Williams. It's some kind of incubation chamber. There were hundreds of them throughout the ship, all connected by organic tubes that snaked along the walls and ceiling like veins. The sight was both beautiful and unsettling, turning the derelict warship into something that looked more like a living organism. Captain, Kira's voice was tense. Something's coming. Multiple contacts moving fast. Marcus raised his pulse rifle just as the first creature emerged from the shadows. It was humanoid, but wrong, with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to shift between different textures. Its face was a nightmare fusion of different species, with features that belonged to at least 4 different alien races grafted together in impossible combinations. Defensive positions, Marcus shouted, but more creatures were already pouring out of hidden passages throughout the corridor. They moved with surprising speed and coordination, like a hive mind directing their actions. The battle was brief, but intense. The creatures were tough, requiring multiple shots to bring down, and they seemed to feel no pain or fear. But what disturbed Marcus most was their obvious artificial nature. These weren't natural beings. They were constructed from pieces of other species. "Captain, we need to get out of here," urged Chief Williams as they fought their way back toward the airlock. "There are too many of them." But Kira had stopped moving. She was standing perfectly still, her fox ears swiveling as she listened to something the others couldn't hear. "Wait," she said quietly. "They're not attacking anymore. They're communicating." Marcus looked around and realized she was right. The creatures had stopped their assault and were now standing in a loose circle around the human team. Strange clicking and whistling sounds echoed through the corridor, almost musical in their complexity. "I think they're trying to talk to us," Kira said. She removed her helmet, ignoring Marcus's sharp protest. "The atmospheric readings show the air is safe here, different from the rest of the ship." Kira, don't, but she was already breathing the ship's atmosphere, her sensitive nose analyzing the chemical composition. "It's breathable. More than that, it's been specifically adjusted for multiple species types." "Captain, I think these creatures aren't hostile. I think they're prisoners, just like I was." One of the creatures approached slowly, its mismatched features arranging themselves into what might have been an attempt at a friendly expression. When it spoke, its voice was a harmony of different tones, as if multiple vocal cords were working in coordination. "You are not the masters," it said in broken standard. "You smell different, taste different in the air." Marcus kept his weapon ready, but didn't raise it. "Who are the masters?" "The ones who made us, combined us, took pieces from our people, and created new forms. They said we were improvements, but we know we are abominations." Kira stepped forward, her amber eyes filled with compassion. "How long have you been here?" "Cycles beyond counting. We were many species once. Krellin, Vorthin, hegemony, others. Now we are nothing, neither one thing nor another." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The hegemony had been conducting biological experiments on captured aliens, creating hybrid creatures for unknown purposes. When their civilization had collapsed, they'd simply abandoned their test subjects aboard this ship. "We tried to die," another creature added, its voice a mixture of musical tones that somehow conveyed immense sadness. "But the masters made us too strong, too adaptive. We cannot starve, cannot age normally, cannot escape this existence." Kira approached the nearest creature and, to everyone's amazement, gently touched its arm. "You're not abominations. You're survivors. You've maintained your sanity and your compassion despite everything that was done to you. That makes you stronger than your captors ever were." The creature looked down at her small hand on its hybrid flesh, and something that might have been tears began to fall from its eyes. "You do not see us as monsters. I see you as people who have suffered greatly, but haven't lost their humanity," Kira replied. "Different species, different forms, but the same basic decency that separates civilized beings from true monsters." Marcus understood now why Kira had removed her helmet. She'd recognized something in these creatures that resonated with her own experiences. Like her, they'd been told they were lesser beings, failed experiments, things to be hidden away and ashamed of their existence. "Is there a way to reverse what was done to you?" Marcus asked. The creatures exchanged glances with their mismatched eyes. "Perhaps," one replied. "The masters kept extensive records. But even if the process could be reversed, we have been changed too long. We might not survive becoming separate again. What if there was a third option?" Kira suggested. "What if instead of hiding away in this ship, you came with us? The galaxy has changed since you were imprisoned. There are places now where being different isn't seen as a crime. You would accept us? Even looking as we do. Marcus stepped forward, his decision made. My ship operates under a simple principle. Every sentient being deserves dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance or origin. If you want to leave this place, you're welcome aboard the Wanderer's Hope. The creatures were silent for a long moment, communicating among themselves in their musical language. Finally, their apparent leader spoke again. We have forgotten our original names. We call ourselves the Remnant now. If you truly mean what you say, if there is a place in your galaxy for beings such as us, then yes, we would like to leave this tomb and see the stars again. As they worked to evacuate the surviving remnant from the derelict ship, Marcus watched Kira coordinate the complex operation with a skill that amazed him. She understood instinctively how to communicate with beings who felt like outcasts, how to make them feel valued and welcome. You realize what you've done, don't you? Dr. Rodriguez asked him quietly as they watched Kira helping one of the remnant through the airlock procedures. What's that? You've just taken responsibility for 36 traumatized hybrid beings with no legal status in any known jurisdiction. The Galactic Council is going to have a field day with this. Marcus watched as Kira gently encouraged a particularly nervous remnant to try some human food, her patience and kindness evident in every gesture. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't about what's legal or convenient. Besides, I have a feeling Kira and our new friend are going to change a lot of minds about what it means to be normal in this galaxy. That night, as the Wanderer's Hope set course for the nearest Federation station, Marcus found Kira in the ship's observation lounge. She was standing before the large viewport, watching the stars stream past, with one of the remnant beside her. The hybrid being was almost 3 times her size, but they were chatting quietly like old friends. How are they adjusting? Marcus asked as he approached. Better than expected. They're incredibly resilient and intelligent. Zara here was explaining some of the biotechnology they developed during their imprisonment. They've created sustainable food production systems, advanced medical techniques, even art forms that combine the aesthetic traditions of multiple species. The remnant called Zara turned its composite features toward Marcus. Your Kira has been telling us about her own experiences. We find her story both tragic and inspiring. She is pretty amazing, Marcus agreed, not caring that Kira was blushing at the compliment. Indeed, it is rare to find beings who can see past physical form to recognize the worth of another's spirit. You and she are well matched in that regard. Marcus felt his own cheeks warm. We're not. We're just friends. Zara made a sound that might have been laughter. Among my people, before the changes, there was a saying, the heart sees what the eyes cannot. Perhaps humans have a similar concept. Kira turned from the viewport, her amber eyes meeting Marcus's. There was something in her expression that made his breath catch in his throat. In Vulperian culture, we believe that true compatibility isn't about species or appearance. It's about finding someone whose spirit resonates with your own. And have you found that? Marcus asked quietly. I think I have, she replied, stepping closer to him. The question is whether that person feels the same resonance. Marcus reached out and gently touched her hand, the same gesture she'd made with him weeks ago in her quarters. Idol, more than I ever thought possible. Zara observed this exchange with what passed for a smile on its hybrid features. Perhaps there is more hope for this galaxy than we initially believed. If such connections can form across species barriers, perhaps there is room for all of us in the stars. As the 3 of them stood together watching the endless dance of the cosmos, Marcus realized that his ship had become something more than a salvage vessel. It was becoming a haven for those who didn't fit the galaxy's narrow definitions of normal, a place where worth was measured by character rather than appearance. And at the center of it all was Kira, the foxwoman who had taught him that beauty came in many forms, and that the most precious treasures were often found in the most unexpected places. The Federation Council chambers on Proxima Station were designed to intimidate. The vast circular amphitheater could hold representatives from over 300 species, with each delegation's seating area carefully arranged to reflect their status in the galactic hierarchy. The most powerful civilizations occupied the inner rings, while newer or less influential species were relegated to the outer sections. Marcus stood at the center podium, feeling very small under the weight of thousands of alien eyes studying him and his crew. Beside him, Kira maintained her composure despite the barely concealed hostility radiating from several delegations. Behind them, a select group of the remnant waited in the designated witness area, their hybrid appearances causing whispers and disturbed murmurs throughout the chamber. The Federation Council recognizes Captain Marcus Chun of the Terran vessel Wanderer's Hope, announced Council Speaker Threnvar, a tall, elegant being with crystalline skin that refracted light in hypnotic patterns. You stand accused of violating Salvage Protocol 847, by removing biological specimens from a classified archaeological site without proper authorization. Marcus activated his voice amplifier. Honorable Speaker, with respect, the beings we rescued are not specimens. They are sentient individuals who were held against their will for over 2 centuries. A wave of chittering and clicking erupted from the hegemony successor faction. Their new representative, a blue-skinned humanoid called Morthek, rose from his seat in the inner ring. The creatures in question are property of the Hegemony Legacy Trust, Morthek declared, his voice carrying across the chamber with practiced authority. They were created using hegemony biotechnology and genetic material. As the legal inheritors of all hegemony assets, we demand their immediate return. Marcus felt his anger spike, but before he could respond, Kira stepped forward. May I address the council? Honorable Speaker, you are not granted speaking privileges, specimen. Morthek interrupted dismissively. This matter concerns civilized beings, not experimental subjects. The chamber fell silent. Even by the standards of galactic politics, referring to a Federation citizen as a specimen was considered deeply offensive. Kira's fox ears flattened against her head, but her voice remained steady. I am Kira of the Vulperian people, a recognized member species of this Federation. I have the right to speak on matters that affect my safety and that of my companions. Speaker Threnvar consulted his procedural database. The Vulperian is correct. She may address the council. Kira moved to the podium with a grace that drew every eye in the chamber. She was small compared to most of the assembled delegates, but she carried herself with a dignity that commanded attention. When she spoke, her voice was clear and unwavering. Honorable delegates, I stand before you as someone who understands what it means to be treated as less than sentient. For years, I was subjected to experiments and procedures because those in power decided that my value lay not in my thoughts or feelings, but in what could be learned from my biology. She gestured toward the remnant in the witness area. These beings behind me have endured centuries of the same treatment. They were taken from their families, their homes, their very species, and forcibly combined into forms that others find disturbing. But they retain their memories, their personalities, their capacity for joy and sorrow and hope. They are abominations, declared a representative from the Purity Coalition, a faction that believed in strict species segregation. Unnatural fusions that should never have been created. One of the remnant stood up in the witness area. Zara's composite features arranged themselves into an expression of calm dignity. I was once Zaravental of the Vorthan singing clans. My voice was considered one of the most beautiful in our system. The masters took my vocal cords, my memory engrams, my genetic material, and combined them with others to create what I am now. The being's voice shifted through multiple harmonics as it continued. I remember my children, who would now be centuries dead. I remember the songs my people sang to welcome the dawn. I remember the taste of Vorthan's sweet fruit and the feeling of my homeworld's purple grass beneath my feet. Tell me, honored delegates, does the capacity to remember and grieve make me less than sentient? Another remnant rose. I was Captain Reldor of the Hegemony 4th Fleet. I remember my duty, my honor, my love for my people. When I learned what my government was doing to prisoners of war, I tried to stop it. They made me into part of their experiments as punishment for my disloyalty. I may look like a monster now, but I know who I am inside. More remnant began to stand, each sharing fragments of their original identities, their lost homes, their preserved memories, and feelings. The chamber grew quiet as the assembled delegates listened to testimony that was impossible to dismiss as mere programming or artificial intelligence. Marcus watched the faces in the audience, seeing uncertainty replace disgust in many expressions. But Morthek remained unmoved. Emotional appeals do not change the legal reality, the hegemony representative declared. These entities were created using our property and technology. They belong to us, and we will determine their fate. And what fate is that? Asked Speaker Threnvar. They will be returned to secure facilities for study. The biotechnology used in their creation could benefit all Federation species if properly researched. You mean you want to dissect us? Zaris said quietly. Again, the chamber erupted in arguments as different factions began debating the legal and ethical implications. Marcus realized that pure emotion wouldn't win this fight. He needed to appeal to the council's political instincts. Honorable Speaker, he called out, raising his voice above the noise. I invoke Article 7 of the Sapient Rights Accords. The chamber fell silent again. Article 7 was rarely used because it was considered almost impossible to prove. Speaker Threnvar looked intrigued. Article 7 requires demonstrable evidence of unique cultural contributions that benefit galactic civilization as a whole. You claim these beings qualify for cultural protection status. Edo. Marcus activated a holographic projector that displayed the data they'd gathered during their weeks with the Remnant. During their centuries of imprisonment, the Remnant didn't simply survive. They created. They developed new art forms combining the aesthetic traditions of multiple species. They created sustainable biotechnology that could revolutionize agriculture on resource-poor worlds. They established philosophical frameworks for interspecies cooperation that go far beyond anything in our current diplomatic protocols. The holographic display showed examples of remnant artwork, musical compositions that required multiple vocal ranges to perform, architectural designs that incorporated the environmental preferences of dozens of different species, and agricultural systems that could adapt to any planetary condition. Moreover, Marcus continued, they've developed medical techniques that could treat genetic diseases previously considered incurable. Their forced combination of different biological systems has given them insights into cross-species medicine that no single species research team could achieve. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward with her own datapad. I've documented 17 separate medical innovations developed by the Remnant during their imprisonment. Their hybrid biology has given them the ability to synthesize medicines and treatments that work across species barriers. One of their healing techniques has already proven effective in treating Vorthan song cancer, a disease that has plagued their people for generations. A stirring went through the Vorthan delegation. Song cancer was a genetic condition that affected their ability to produce their signature harmonics, essentially stealing their cultural identity from those who contracted it. The Vorthan speaker, a graceful being with skin that showed shifting musical patterns, stood slowly. Is this claim verified? It is, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed. Patient trials conducted under Federation medical standards show a 94% recovery rate. The political calculus in the chamber shifted immediately. Several delegations began urgent conversations with their advisors. The promise of medical advances was always a powerful motivator in Federation politics. But Morthek wasn't finished. None of this changes their legal status. They remain hegemony property, regardless of their achievements. Kira stepped forward again, her amber eyes blazing with determination. Then, I challenged that claim under the right of individual testimony. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The right of individual testimony was an ancient Federation law that allowed any being to claim personhood by demonstrating three qualities: self-awareness, cultural identity, and the capacity for moral choice. It was rarely invoked because it required the testimony of established Federation citizens. I, Kira of the Volperian people, offer testimony to the personhood of each member of the Remnant. I have lived among them, learned from them, and witnessed their individual personalities and choices. They're not property. They are people. Marcus immediately understood what she was doing and stepped forward as well. I, Marcus Chun, citizen of Terra and captain of the Federation vessel Wanderer's Hope, also offered testimony to their personhood. Dr. Rodriguez joined them. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Federation Medical Service. I testify to their sentience and individuality. One by one, every member of Marcus's crew stood and offered their testimony. Then, to everyone's surprise, voices began rising from the delegates' sections. I, Veltar of the Aqueous Collective, offer testimony. Zarthek of the Mineral Confederacy adds my voice. The Crystalline Authority recognizes their personhood. Within minutes, over 100 delegates had offered testimony, representing nearly half the Federation membership. Even some of the Hegemony successor worlds broke ranks to support the Remnant's claim to personhood. Speaker Thrinvar looked around the chamber with an expression that might have been amazement. In 3 centuries of Federation Council sessions, I have never witnessed such a unanimous expression of support for a right of individual testimony claim. Morthek's face had turned a darker shade of blue. This is irregular. The procedures have not been properly followed. I demand a recess to the procedures have been followed perfectly, Speaker Thrinvar interrupted. And the testimony is overwhelming. He activated the official recording system. By the power invested in me by the Federation Charter, I hereby recognize the beings known as the Remnant as full persons under Federation law, with all attendant rights and protections. The chamber erupted in cheers from most delegations, while the Hegemony successors and Purity Coalition representatives sat in stunned silence. Furthermore, the speaker continued, given the unique nature of their situation and their demonstrated contributions to galactic society, the Federation Council hereby grants them protected cultural status. Any attempt to forcibly study, relocate, or otherwise interfere with a remnant will be considered an act of aggression against the Federation itself. As they filed out of the council chambers, Marcus felt a profound sense of satisfaction. But, more than that, he felt pride in what they'd accomplished. They'd not only saved the remnant from a fate worse than death, they'd forced the galaxy to confront its own prejudices about what constituted normal or acceptable forms of life. Kira walked beside him, her hand clasped in his. I never imagined the council would be so receptive, she said quietly. You gave them no choice, Marcus replied. When you stepped up and demanded to be heard, you reminded them that the Federation is supposed to stand for something more than politics and economics. You reminded them of their ideals. Behind them, the remnant moved in a tight group, still somewhat overwhelmed by the day's events. Zara approached them as they reached the docking bay where the Wanderer's Hope waited. Captain Shun, Kira, we cannot express our gratitude sufficiently. For the first time in centuries, we are truly free. What will you do now? Kira asked. We have been offered positions at the Federation Research Institute, Zara replied. Our unique perspectives and abilities are apparently quite valued now that we are recognized as people rather than specimens. Some of us will pursue medical research, others will explore artistic collaborations with single-species creators. A few want to try to locate any surviving relatives from our original peoples. And you'll always have a home aboard our ship, Marcus added. The Wanderer's Hope is becoming quite the collection of unique individuals. That evening, as their ship departed Proxima Station, Marcus found Kira in her favorite spot at the observation deck. She was watching the stars, but her expression was thoughtful rather than peaceful. What's on your mind? He asked, settling beside her. I keep thinking about what that hegemony representative called me. Specimen. For just a moment, I felt like I was back in that research station, being told I was nothing more than an interesting biological sample. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders. You know that's not true. I do now. But for years I believed it. I thought that being different made me less valuable, less worthy of respect and love. She leaned against him, drawing comfort from his presence. If we hadn't found each other, if you hadn't seen me as more than just another alien with useful traits, but I did see you. I saw who you really are from the moment we met. And that changed everything. Not just for me, but for all of us. The remnant, the crew, even some of those council delegates who'd probably never questioned their assumptions about what makes someone worthy of dignity. Marcus thought about the events of the past few weeks. They'd rescued survivors, challenged unjust laws, and forced an entire galactic civilization to reconsider its prejudices. But more than that, they'd proven that connection and understanding could transcend any barrier of species, appearance, or origin. "So what happens next?" he asked. Kira smiled, her amber eyes reflecting the starlight. "We keep being who we are. We keep finding those who need help, who need to know they're not alone. We keep showing the galaxy that there's beauty in diversity, strength in compassion, and hope in the most unlikely places." Sounds like a good mission for a salvage ship. "The best kind of salvage," Kira agreed. "We're not just rescuing ships and cargo anymore. We're rescuing something much more precious." "What's that?" "The idea that everyone deserves to be seen, to be valued, to be loved exactly as they are." As the Wanderer's Hope jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew of misfits and outcasts toward whatever adventure awaited them among the stars, Marcus realized that Kira was right. They'd found something worth fighting for, something worth protecting. They'd found a new definition of home, one that had nothing to do with planets or species, and everything to do with acceptance, understanding, and love. The fox woman who had once believed herself unsightly had become the heart of a movement that was spreading throughout the galaxy. And at her side, a human salvage captain had discovered that the most valuable treasures couldn't be measured in credits or technological advancement, but in the connections forged between souls who recognized each other across the vastness of space. 6 months had passed since the Federation Council's historic recognition of the Remnant, and the Wanderer's Hope had become something of a legend throughout the Outer Rim territories. Word had spread about the ship that took in outcasts and misfits, and Marcus found his crew growing steadily as beings from across the galaxy sought them out. Their latest addition was Korak, a massive Ursine warrior whose people had been enslaved by raiders for decades. He'd escaped during a rescue operation and now served as their security chief, his intimidating appearance hiding a gentle soul that loved poetry and philosophical discussions. Then there was Dr. Nyx, a cybernetic synthetic who'd been abandoned by her creators when they upgraded to newer models. Her combination of organic and artificial components made her an outcast among both biological and fully artificial beings, but her medical expertise had already saved several lives. The ship itself had undergone modifications to accommodate their diverse crew. The common areas now included environmental controls for different atmospheric preferences, gravity adjusters for species of varying masses, and specialized quarters designed for beings who didn't fit standard humanoid proportions. Marcus stood in the expanded medical bay, watching Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Nyx work together to treat their latest passengers. The Wanderer's Hope had intercepted a distress call from a passenger liner that had suffered catastrophic decompression. They'd managed to save 43 of the 78 beings aboard, but many of the survivors were in critical condition. "How are they looking?" Marcus asked quietly. "Better than expected," Dr. Rodriguez replied without looking up from her patient, a young cetacean whose aquatic nature made treatment challenging aboard a standard vessel. "Dr. Nyx's modifications to our life support systems are keeping the aquatic species stable, and Zara's hybrid medical techniques are proving invaluable for the more exotic physiologies." Dr. Nyx's optical sensors glowed as she monitored multiple patients simultaneously. "The crystalline youth will require specialized mineral supplements for the next few weeks, but should make a full recovery. The challenge is the ethereal elder. Their energy matrix was severely disrupted by the decompression. What do you need? Time and resources we don't have. Ethereal physiology requires treatment modalities that exist only at major medical centers." Marcus was about to respond when Kira entered the medical bay. Over the past months, she'd become his unofficial second-in-command, her diplomatic skills and natural empathy making her the perfect intermediary between him and their increasingly diverse crew. "The nearest Federation medical facility is 3 days away at maximum burn," she reported. "But I've been in contact with the ethereal embassy ship Serenity's Dream. They're willing to rendezvous with us in 18 hours. That's cutting it close for the patient," Dr. Nyx observed, "which is why I've asked them to prepare for an unprecedented procedure." The embassy ship has ethereal healing specialists who might be able to stabilize our patient remotely if we can establish the proper resonance frequencies. Marcus smiled. Kira's ability to think outside conventional parameters had saved them countless times. What do you need from us? Korik is already modifying the communications array to handle ethereal energy frequencies. The procedure itself will require precise coordination between our medical team and their healers. If it works, we might be looking at a revolutionary new form of remote medical intervention. 3 hours later, the main deck had been converted into an impromptu healing chamber. The ethereal patient, whose body appeared as a shifting constellation of light particles contained within a roughly humanoid energy field, lay connected to a complex array of resonance generators that Korik had somehow constructed from spare parts and salvaged equipment. Establishing connection with the Serenity's dream, reported Lieutenant Kim from the bridge. Their healers are standing by. Marcus watched in fascination as the air above the patient began to shimmer. Slowly, graceful forms of pure energy began to materialize in the chamber. The ethereal healers had somehow projected their consciousness across space, creating temporary energy avatars that could interact with their patient. "This is remarkable," whispered Dr. Rodriguez. "They're actually here, but not here. It's like they've bridged the gap between physical and energy-based existence." The healing process was beautiful to watch. The avatars moved in perfect harmony around their patient, their energy forms interweaving in complex patterns that gradually stabilized the injured being's disrupted matrix. But what struck Marcus most was the way his own crew worked alongside these energy beings without hesitation or awkwardness. Kira coordinated the resonance frequencies with intuitive skill. Dr. Nix's cybernetic systems interfaced seamlessly with the ethereal technology. Even Korik, whose people had historically been enemies of the ethereals, worked tirelessly to maintain the equipment that made the healing possible. When the procedure was complete and the patient's energy signature had stabilized, the lead ethereal healer's avatar turned toward Marcus. "Captain Chun, what we have witnessed today should not have been possible. The cooperation between such diverse forms of life, the willingness to trust and support beings so different from yourselves, this represents a fundamental shift in how the galaxy views interspecies relations." "We're all just people trying to help each other," Marcus replied. "Species and physical form don't matter when someone's life is at stake." "Indeed. The Federation Council has been monitoring your activities with great interest. Your ship has become a symbol of something many thought impossible: true unity among the diverse peoples of our galaxy." After the ethereal healers had departed and their patient was resting comfortably, Marcus found himself on the observation deck with several of his crew members. It had become their unofficial meeting place, a spot where beings of different species could gather and simply enjoy each other's company. Zara was teaching Korik one of the ancient Vorthan harmony songs, the massive warrior's surprisingly melodic voice blending with the remnant's multi-tonal vocalizations. Dr. Nix sat nearby, her optical sensors dimmed in what passed for relaxation among her kind, while she monitored the ship's systems with background processes. "You know," said Chief Williams, "when I first signed onto a salvage ship, I thought I'd be spending my time hauling scrap metal and abandoned cargo. I never imagined I'd be part of something like this." "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Nix, her mechanical voice carrying genuine curiosity. "I mean, look around. A few months ago, most of these species wouldn't have been in the same system together, let alone working as a team. We've got organic and synthetic, energy and matter, predator and prey species all functioning as a single unit. It's unprecedented." Kira, who had been quietly listening to the conversation, stood and moved to the large viewport. "I think what we've created here is more than just a crew. We've proven that the barriers between species are artificial constructs. When you strip away politics and prejudice, what remains is the fundamental desire for connection and understanding. The question is whether what we've built here can be replicated on a larger scale," Marcus said, joining her at the viewport. "One ship is a curiosity. A movement is a revolution." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the bridge. Lieutenant Kim's voice carried a note of concern that made everyone immediately alert. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Federation Command. Admiral Thrasis wants to speak with you immediately. Admiral Thrasis was a legend in the Federation fleet, a mantid whose tactical brilliance had ended 3 separate wars through strategic negotiation rather than military action. If she wanted to speak with him personally, it meant something significant was happening. Marcus made his way to the bridge, where the main view screen showed the Admiral's distinctive insectoid features. Her compound eyes reflected light in patterns that conveyed emotional states to those who understood mantid physiology. Currently, they suggested intense concern. Captain Chun, I'll be direct. The Federation is facing a crisis that threatens to tear apart everything we've built over the past 3 centuries. The Hegemony successors have formed an alliance with the Purity Coalition and several other species supremacist factions. They're calling it the Natural Order Alliance, and they're demanding the reversal of all recent integration policies. Marcus felt his stomach clench. They're targeting the mixed species crews and settlements. Worse, they've convinced nearly a third of the Federation membership that interspecies cooperation has gone too far. They claim that maintaining distinct species identities is necessary for galactic stability, and that ships like yours represent a dangerous precedent that will lead to the dissolution of all cultural boundaries. On screen behind the Admiral, Marcus could see tactical displays showing fleet movements and political alignments. The situation looked grim. What's our role in this? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Your crew has become the symbol of everything the Natural Order Alliance opposes. They see the Wanderer's hope as proof that unchecked integration will lead to chaos and the destruction of species purity. They've declared your activities a threat to galactic order. And the Federation's position? Admiral Thrasis's compound eyes shifted to patterns indicating determination mixed with worry. Officially, we support your right to operate as you have been. Unofficially, there's pressure to restrict your activities to prevent further destabilization of interspecies relations. Kira had arrived on the bridge during the conversation. Marcus noticed her fox ears flatten against her head, a sign of distress he'd learned to recognize. Admiral, Kira said, stepping forward, what exactly are they proposing? Complete species segregation in all official Federation activities. No more mixed crews, no more joint colonies. No more interspecies research projects. They want to roll back 50 years of integration progress. The bridge fell silent. The implications were staggering. Everything they'd worked for, everything they'd proven was possible, could be undone by political fear and prejudice. There's something else, the Admiral continued. Intelligence suggests they're planning something called Operation Purity. We don't have details, but it appears to involve forced relocation of what they term contaminated populations to isolated systems. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. Contaminated populations. You mean anyone who doesn't fit their narrow definition of species purity. The remnant, mixed species families, beings like yourself who work closely with other species, settlements that have integrated multiple cultures, yes. Dr. Nix's optical sensors flared brightly, a sign of extreme processing activity. They're essentially planning ethnic cleansing on a galactic scale. Which is why I'm contacting you directly, Captain. Your ship has proven that true cooperation between species isn't just possible, it's beneficial to everyone involved. We need you to do something that's going to be extremely dangerous, but could save the Federation itself. What do you need us to do? Admiral Thrasis's image leaned forward, her insectoid features conveying the gravity of the situation. There's going to be a summit on Harmony Station in 2 weeks. Representatives from every Federation member species will be there to debate the Natural Order Alliance's proposals. We need someone to demonstrate conclusively and publicly that integrated crews like yours represent the future of galactic civilization, not its downfall. You want us to be living proof that diversity is strength, Kira said quietly. Exactly. But understand the Natural Order Alliance won't just sit by and let that happen. There are credible threats against your ship and crew. Some of their more extreme members see eliminating the Wanderer's hope as a symbolic victory that would demoralize the integration movement. Marcus looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Human, Vulperian, synthetic, Ursine, and others. Each of them had found a home here, a place where they were valued for who they were rather than what species they belonged to. Admiral, we'll be there, and we'll show the galaxy exactly what unity looks like. I was hoping you'd say that. But, Captain, be careful. The stakes have never been higher. If we fail, the Federation itself might not survive the resulting civil war. After the communication ended, Marcus turned to address his diverse crew. You all heard the Admiral. We're heading into potentially the most dangerous situation we've ever faced. If anyone wants to transfer to a safer assignment, now would be the time. Korik's deep voice rumbled through the bridge. Captain, my people have a saying. The pack that stands together survives the storm that scatters the lone wolves. Where you go, we go. Similar declarations came from every crew member. Dr. Nix summed up the general sentiment. We are more than the sum of our individual species. We are proof that the future belongs to those who embrace unity rather than division. Kira moved to Marcus's side, her amber eyes blazing with determination. 2 weeks to prepare for the most important performance of our lives. We need to show them not just that we can work together, but that we're stronger together than any of us could be alone. As the Wanderer's Hope set course for Harmony Station, Marcus realized they were about to become the focal point of a conflict that would determine the future of galactic civilization. Everything they'd built, everything they'd proven, would be put to the ultimate test. But, looking around at his crew, at the beings who had become his family through choice rather than birth, Marcus felt something he hadn't expected: confidence. They had already proven that love and understanding could transcend any barrier. Now, they would have the chance to share that proof with the entire galaxy. The fox woman who had once called herself Unsightly was now leading a revolution of acceptance and unity. And Marcus couldn't think of anyone better suited to help save the Federation from itself. Harmony Station hung in space like a massive crystalline flower, its multiple arms extending outward from a central hub to accommodate the environmental needs of hundreds of different species. Built specifically for interspecies diplomacy, the station was both a marvel of engineering and a symbol of Federation ideals. Now it would serve as the stage for determining whether those ideals would survive. The Wanderer's Hope approached the station along with hundreds of other vessels representing every member species of the Federation. But Marcus could see the clear division among the arriving ships. Those supporting the Natural Order Alliance maintained strict formation patterns with no mixed crews visible, while the Integration supporters arrived in the kind of diverse flotilla that his own ship had helped inspire. Quite a turnout, observed Dr. Nix from the sensor station. I'm counting delegations from 847 different species and subspecies. This may be the largest gathering in Federation history. Kira stood beside Marcus at the main viewport, watching the diplomatic dance of ship positioning around the station. The Alliance ships are clustering in the outer approach vectors. They're literally maintaining separation even in their arrival patterns. While our supporters are mixing freely, added Lieutenant Kim. Look at that cluster near the Gamma arm. I count at least 30 different species working together to coordinate their docking procedures. Korik's deep voice carried a note of concern. Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from several of the Alliance vessels. Military-grade shields and weapons that exceed normal diplomatic escort parameters. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. They're expecting trouble, or planning to cause it. The docking process took several hours due to the sheer number of vessels, but eventually the Wanderer's Hope was secured to a berth in the station's integration sector. As they prepared to disembark, Marcus gathered his crew in the main cargo bay. Remember, we're not just representing ourselves here. Every mixed crew, every integrated settlement, every being who's ever been told they don't belong somewhere is counting on us. We show them unity, cooperation, and strength through diversity. Zara's composite features arrange themselves into a determined expression. Captain, speaking for the Remnant, we understand the weight of this moment. For the first time since our transformation, we have a chance to prove that being different doesn't make us less valuable. For the first time in my operational cycle, added Dr. Nix, I feel truly optimistic about the future of synthetic-organic relations. Whatever happens here will determine whether beings like me have a place in galactic society. The crew moved through the station's corridors as a unit, drawing stares and whispers from other delegations. Marcus noticed how some beings stepped aside with expressions of disgust or fear, while others watched with curiosity and admiration. The Wanderer's Hope crew had become a living symbol, and symbols always attracted strong reactions. They were heading toward their assigned quarters when a group of tall, blue-skinned humanoids blocked their path. Marcus recognized them as hegemony successors, led by the same Morthek who had opposed them at the previous council session. "The monster parade has arrived," Morthek announced loudly, ensuring his words carried to nearby delegations. "How fitting that the freaks and aberrations travel together. You make it easier to identify the contamination." Kira stepped forward before Marcus could respond. "Representative Morthek, I hope you've recovered from the embarrassment of your last public appearance." Morthek's blue skin darkened with anger. "You should not have come here, Fox Thing. The Natural Order Alliance has significant support now. Your days of corrupting pure species with your integration poison are numbered." "Interesting choice of words," Dr. Nix interjected, her optical sensors focusing on Morthek with mechanical precision. "Poison, contamination, purity. The historical parallels are quite illuminating." Before the confrontation could escalate further, Admiral Thrasis appeared with a security escort. Her compound eyes reflected patterns of controlled aggression as she addressed both groups. "Gentle beings, save your energy for the formal debates. Representative Morthek, your delegation is expected at the orientation briefing. Captain Chun, your crew has been assigned quarters in Section Gamma 7. As they separated, Morthek leaned close to Kira. "Enjoy your temporary sanctuary, Abomination. After tomorrow's presentations, the galaxy will see you and your kind for what you truly are, mistakes that need correction." That evening, the crew gathered in their assigned common area to prepare for the next day's crucial presentations. The formal debate would consist of demonstrations from both sides, followed by testimonials from various species representatives, and culminating in a Federation-wide vote on the Alliance's proposals. "Intel suggests they're planning something dramatic for their demonstration," reported Chief Williams, who'd been networking with security personnel throughout the station. Multiple sources mention a definitive proof that integration leads to chaos. Marcus studied the tactical displays Korik had prepared. "What kind of proof?" "Unknown, but they've been moving significant amounts of equipment into their presentation chamber. Energy projectors, containment fields, the works." Kira looked up from her own preparations. "Whatever they're planning, we need to be ready with a response that demonstrates the positive power of cooperation." "What did you have in mind?" asked Dr. Rodriguez. "Something they can't fake or dismiss. A real-time demonstration of what we can accomplish when different species work together toward a common goal." The next morning, the station's central assembly hall was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from across the galaxy filled every available space, with billions more watching through quantum-link broadcasts. The tension in the air was palpable as Speaker Threnvar called the session to order. The Federation Assembly recognizes this historic session to debate Resolution 2847, the Species Purity and Cultural Preservation Act proposed by the Natural Order Alliance. Morthek stepped forward to present the Alliance's position. Behind him, a massive holographic display activated, showing images of various mixed-species settlements and integrated crews. "Honored delegates, we gather today to address a crisis that threatens the very foundation of galactic civilization. For too long, we have allowed the dangerous ideology of forced integration to corrupt our societies." The display shifted to show statistical analyses and sociological projections. Integration leads to the loss of distinct cultural identities, the dilution of species-specific strengths, and ultimately the collapse of a natural order that has maintained peace for centuries. Marcus watched the presentation with growing unease. The Alliance had assembled compelling-looking data that painted integration as inherently destabilizing. Their arguments were sophisticated and played directly into the fears that many species harbored about losing their unique identities. The ship known as the Wanderer's Hope represents the extreme end of this dangerous trend. More theft continued, as images of Marcus's crew appeared on the display. A collection of misfits, aberrations, and artificial constructs masquerading as a legitimate Federation vessel. The display then shifted to show what appeared to be security footage of various conflicts and accidents involving mixed crews. These images demonstrate the inevitable result of forcing incompatible species to work together: chaos, violence, and ultimately death. Marcus felt his heart sink as he recognized some of the incidents. They were real events, but the Alliance had carefully edited them to remove context and present integration in the worst possible light. But we will provide you with something more convincing than statistics and historical analysis, Morthek announced. We will demonstrate, in real time, exactly what happens when the natural barriers between species are ignored. A section of the presentation chamber's floor retracted, revealing a complex apparatus containing what appeared to be a recreation of a ship's bridge. Various beings from different species were stationed at the control positions, all wearing neural interface headbands. Behold, a controlled simulation of a crisis scenario requiring split-second coordination between multiple species. Watch as their fundamental biological incompatibilities make effective cooperation impossible. The simulation began with what appeared to be an asteroid field navigation scenario. Initially, the mixed crew seemed to function normally, but as the stress levels increased and the situation became more complex, problems began to emerge. The aquatic navigators' thought patterns, visible on overhead displays, showed increasing anxiety that interfered with their spatial calculations. The crystalline engineers' mineral-based cognitive processes couldn't adapt quickly enough to the changing energy requirements. The human captain's emotional responses created conflict with the purely logical synthetic first officer. Within minutes, the simulation crew was paralyzed by miscommunication, incompatible thinking patterns, and fundamental biological conflicts. The scenario ended with a catastrophic collision that would have killed everyone aboard. This is the inevitable result of integration, Morthek declared as murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. Different species evolved separately for good reason. Forcing them together creates only chaos and death. The impact of the demonstration was immediate and devastating. Marcus could see uncertainty and fear spreading through the assembly as delegates witnessed what appeared to be scientific proof that integration was fundamentally flawed. When Morthek finished his presentation to scattered applause, Speaker Thrinvar called for the integration response. Marcus stood and walked to the presentation area with his crew following behind him. Honored delegates, you have just witnessed an impressive piece of theater designed to confirm your deepest fears about interspecies cooperation. But what you've seen is not cooperation at all. Marcus gestured toward the simulation apparatus. The demonstration you just watched forced beings from different species to work together without understanding, preparation, or respect for each other's capabilities. It would be like taking 5 random individuals who speak different languages and expecting them to perform surgery together. Failure was guaranteed from the start. Kira stepped forward, her amber eyes blazing with passion. True cooperation isn't about ignoring our differences. It's about understanding and celebrating them, then finding ways to combine our unique strengths. Allow us to show you what real integration looks like, added Dr. Nix. The crew of the Wanderer's Hope moved to the simulation apparatus, but instead of simply taking positions, they spent several minutes consulting with each other, adjusting interfaces, and modifying the scenario parameters to accommodate their different physiological and cognitive needs. What you're witnessing now is the first step in real cooperation, taking the time to understand each other's capabilities and limitations, Marcus explained as his crew worked. Zara's hybrid nature allows them to interface with multiple ship systems simultaneously. Dr. Nix's cybernetic enhancements enable her to process vast amounts of data while maintaining emotional intuition. Korik's enhanced strength and reflexes provide manual backup for critical systems. The simulation began with the same asteroid field scenario, but this time the results were dramatically different. Instead of fighting against their biological differences, the crew used them as advantages. Kira's enhanced senses detected gravitational anomalies that the ship's sensors missed. Zara's multi-species perspective allowed them to anticipate system failures before they occurred. Dr. Nyx's hybrid nature enabled her to translate between the different cognitive patterns of her teammates. Korit's warrior instincts provided tactical awareness that kept them ahead of developing dangers. But, most importantly, they communicated constantly, sharing information and supporting each other through every challenge the simulation presented. The scenario that had destroyed the Alliance's demonstration crew was navigated flawlessly by the Wanderer's Hope team. But it didn't stop there. Working together, they identified ways to improve the asteroid field's navigation markers, discovered a previously unknown mineral deposit that could benefit several species, and even rescued a disabled vessel that the original scenario had hidden among the asteroids. When the demonstration ended, the assembly hall was silent. The difference between the two approaches was undeniable. "This is what integration really means," Marcus said to the stunned audience. "Not the forced cooperation of incompatible beings, but the voluntary partnership of individuals who choose to understand and support each other." Speaker Threnvar called for testimony from the various delegations. One by one, representatives stood to share their perspectives on integration versus separation. Some spoke in favor of the Alliance's position, citing concerns about cultural preservation and species integrity. But an increasing number shared stories of successful cooperation, beneficial exchanges, and the enrichment that came from interspecies contact. The Vorthan speaker rose, their skin patterns displaying harmonious musical notations. "The medical advances shared by the Remnant have saved thousands of my people's lives. How can we call such beings abominations when they have given us such gifts?" An ethereal ambassador materialized in energy form. "We have learned more about the nature of consciousness and existence through our interactions with synthetic beings like Dr. Nyx than through centuries of isolated contemplation." Even some members of traditionally isolationist species spoke in favor of controlled integration, describing how limited cooperation had benefited their people without threatening their cultural identity. When the testimony phase ended, Morthek demanded a final rebuttal. "Emotional appeals do not change biological reality. These aberrations may have achieved temporary cooperation, but it cannot last. Eventually, their fundamental incompatibilities will surface, and the result will be catastrophic." "Then, perhaps you'd like to test that theory," Kira said suddenly. The assembly fell silent as she continued. "You claim that our cooperation is temporary and unsustainable. Very well. Choose any crisis scenario you like, make it as complex and dangerous as you want, and pit your pure species teams against our integrated crew. Let the galaxies see which approach truly works under pressure." Morthek's eyes gleamed with malicious satisfaction. "An excellent proposal. I accept your challenge." Within an hour, the Alliance had constructed their most complex scenario yet. It involved simultaneous navigation through a collapsing star system, rescue operations on multiple damaged vessels, first contact protocols with a newly discovered species, and diplomatic negotiations to prevent a war between two evacuating civilizations. The Alliance fielded their finest pure species teams, hegemony tactical specialists, crystalline engineers, mandate strategists, and others. Each team was composed entirely of beings from a single species, chosen for their proven excellence in their fields. The Wanderer's Hope crew stood opposite them, a motley collection of different species, hybrid beings, and artificial constructs. To most observers, they looked hopelessly outmatched. "Begin simulation," announced Speaker Threnvar. What followed was perhaps the most complex multi-species cooperation effort ever attempted. The pure species teams attacked each element of the scenario with focused expertise, but struggled to coordinate their efforts or adapt when unexpected complications arose. Meanwhile, the integrated crew of the Wanderer's Hope functioned like a living organism, each member's unique abilities flowing seamlessly into the others. Kira's diplomatic skills helped negotiate the peace treaty, while her enhanced senses monitored environmental dangers. Zara's multi-species medical knowledge proved crucial for treating the various alien injured. Dr. Nix's hybrid nature allowed her to interface with the newly discovered species technology while maintaining emotional connection with the rescue victims. But the real advantage came from their ability to think beyond the constraints of single-species perspectives. When the star's collapse accelerated beyond predicted parameters, they didn't just follow evacuation protocols. They worked together to identify a way to stabilize the star's fusion reaction long enough for a complete evacuation of the entire system. When the complex scenario ended, the integrated crew had not only succeeded in all objectives, but had achieved results that none of the pure species teams had even attempted. The assembly hall erupted in discussion as delegates realized the implications of what they'd witnessed. This wasn't just about crew efficiency or tactical advantages. The integrated approach had revealed solutions that single-species thinking couldn't conceive. Speaker Thrinvar called for the final vote on the Species Purity and Cultural Preservation Act. The results were decisive. 847 species voted to reject the Alliance's proposals, while only 132 supported them. But the real victory came with the next resolution, proposed spontaneously by the Crystalline Confederacy. The Diversity Strength Initiative, which would actively promote and support integrated crews, mixed settlements, and interspecies cooperation projects throughout Federation space. It passed by an even larger margin. As the assembly dispersed, Marcus found himself surrounded by delegates from across the galaxy. Many wanted to learn more about integration techniques, others offered resources to support similar projects, and some simply wanted to thank him and his crew for showing them a better path forward. Captain Chun, Admiral Thrasis approached with an expression that might have been a smile on her insectoid features. It appears your little salvage ship has just salvaged the Federation itself. That evening, the crew of the Wanderer's Hope gathered in their quarters to celebrate. The station's observation deck had been opened to them as a gesture of appreciation, and they found themselves looking out at the same starfield that had brought them together. "So what happens next?" asked Chief Williams. "Now the real work begins," Kira replied. "We've proven that integration is possible. Now we need to help others learn how to make it work." Marcus looked around at his crew, his chosen family, and felt a profound sense of satisfaction. They'd started as a handful of misfits and outcasts aboard a salvage ship. Now, they were the vanguard of a galactic transformation. "You know," he said to Kira, "I never did get an answer to my original statement." "Which statement was that?" "When I told you that you were the most lovable being in the whole galaxy. You never said whether you believed me." Kira smiled, her fox ears twitching with amusement. "I believe you saw something in me that I couldn't."